Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Called the Police Over a Burger. I will try to sum this up the best I can so it isn't long. I got off work at about 11:48 p.m. on New Year's Eve, went on a really long date that ended sad, and went to get dinner at 4:20. I ordered a burger at a burger place over their app and paid for it that way, so it would be done when I got there. I get there and the woman is very confused. The manager is brought over and he laughs in my face saying, "Well, your problem is that we are selling breakfast." I told them about how the app, website, and Google says differently and they didn't care. I sighed and asked for a refund, which the women said, "Nope. Can't refund, sorry." After some back and forth I said, "Fine, then I'll call the police." She replied back with, "Do it." Now I wouldn't call the police over a cheeseburger, but mine had bacon. I called the non-emergency number and a police car came over, then another. When they pulled up I realized, I just called the police over a damn hamburger. End result, I got basically a slip to come back anytime the next day for free lunch which I just finished eating. The next one is titled, Manager Wants Me to Identify People Every Time I Encounter Someone at an Alarm. Sure thing. So a little story from years ago about an assistant manager that doesn't understand the work at all. I worked as a security guard driving around industrial areas and responding to alarms that go off at the buildings from our clients. When I started there I was told, learn to ask for proper ID, driving license, passport, ID card, if I encounter someone in the building, which was very common as most alarms came from people not turning off the alarm in time, entering the wrong code, and note their details in the report. But, and this will be important later on, if they can't show ID, kindly request them to leave and close the building. If they refuse, call police to deal with it. Some background to make things more clear, laws here make it so that security guards are just civilians. Which means I can ask for ID, but if they refuse to give it there is nothing I can do. Only law enforcement officers can demand IDs. Also, my assistant manager hates me for some reason, always looking for something to pin on me. So for a few years I do this as I was learned, ask for ID if I found someone in the building and ask them to leave if they refused or didn't have one with them. Some would show credit cards or other things with their name on it, then I would write it in my report but still ask them to leave. All this time the assistant manager would go over these reports in the morning. But I never heard any complaint about it. So I was doing stuff right, I thought. After a few years on this particular day I get an alarm, so I drove there. I arrive at the building, go in and find the cleaning lady doing her job. The alarm system logs shows she entered the wrong code the first time and was just a little too late entering it correct the second time. As would happen a lot. I kindly ask her for an ID and she tells me she doesn't have any with her. She shows me a bank card with her name. I write down the name in the report, including it was from a bank card, and tell her she has to leave. She understands, pick up her stuff and leaves. I finish my report and go on my merry way. The next morning I receive an email from my assistant manager, going mental over the fact I send the cleaning lady away without anything down, proper ID details. And telling me the client is mad because they wanted to know who was in the building. I calmly reply that I did what I always did and was instructed to do when I joined the company. And had been doing without any issue for the last 3 or 4 years. The reply came fast with detailed instructions. If someone doesn't have proper ID on them, you call the police and have them identify the person so you can note it in your report. The assistant manager also made a memo stating this to everyone in the unit. Which I of course also made a copy of. As the good employee that I am, I followed that instruction to the letter. Most others didn't, as they weren't targeted by the assistant manager. So they could do whatever they wanted. I called the police every time a person couldn't show me proper ID. Which happened almost every shift I worked, if not multiple times in a single shift. Leading to, 1. A few employees of clients actually being arrested for failing to identify to a law enforcement officer. This wasn't my intention at all. Some police officers were jerks and just arrested them even though they could verify the identity of someone fairly simple on location. 2. The police calling my manager why the hell they were called every single day to go and confirm someone's name because they didn't have ID on them. 3. Multiple clients calling the manager why a simple alarm was taking 3 times longer than usual. Clients have to pay per 15 minutes I am on site after the initial 15 minutes have passed, and refusing to pay the extra fee for me waiting for the police to show up. As I expected, I got invited for a talk with my manager and assistant manager to discuss some things. Basically, my manager wanted to chew me out over all these calls he had been getting, let alone people being arrested. The next day I sit down with my manager and the assistant manager, being very cheerful as his favorite target was getting a huge reprimand. The manager asks me why I called to police every time someone doesn't have a proper ID, asking me if I have any idea how upset the police is and how many clients are refusing to pay the fee because it takes so much longer now I have to wait for the police. Basically, I costed the company a lot of money. After the manager has asked these questions, I pull out my folder containing the email conversation with the assistant manager, instructing me to do exactly that, and the copy of the now conveniently disappeared from the office memo with the same instructions, both signed by assistant manager. The same assistant manager that is now turning pale realizing what I'm about to hand over to the manager. I calmly explain the manager while he is reading both papers that I am only following the instructions given to me, as I had clearly been doing it wrong for the last 3 to 4 years prior to this incident. The face of the manager is slowly turning red from anger, while the assistant manager is turning paler by the second. Before the manager explodes, he asks me to go grab a coffee and wait till he calls me back in. They needed to go over these papers and decide what they would do with me. Sure thing, boss. While I'm enjoying my coffee, I can hear my manager go mental to his assistant. Multiple things like, "How can you be so stupid?" and "They have it on XYZ paper, you idiot," are clearly heard across the entire floor. When I get called back in, I can see my assistant manager sitting silently, shamefully behind his computer, attempting to avoid any and all eye contact with me. The manager calmly explains he wasn't aware of these papers and that I should follow the instructions as all other employees should, saving face, as admitting this was wrong and changing the instructions would mean defeat of the management, and that he would inform all clients about this so they can avoid these kinds of incidents. I spend the next 9 years following these instructions, which angered the assistant manager as he would read my reports every morning, telling about how the police had to show up again and again for something silly. Eventually they found a way to get rid of me, reassigning me to a new position, which I gladly accepted as the work was a lot more fun. I actually became a law enforcement officer with that switch. The pay was better and the hours were even sweeter. The next one is titled, "You Want the House? Okay, good luck at the renovation." This happened in year 2015. Grandmother on my father's side died in 2007, bless her soul. She owned a house and lot, a bungalow type near the sea. This house wasn't paid in full and there's still remaining balance about $5,200 in US dollars. This is already a big money for us. Because my father is the only son, his older sisters agreed he should get the house. There was no will, but he should pay the remaining balance. We lived there and renovated the house. My father did almost 75% of the work. He added 2 bedrooms, ceiling, furniture, add another bathroom, tiled the floors, kitchen sink, and septic tank. No drainage system on that location. Basically, we received the house in bare shape. We paid fully in 2015, but we didn't receive the title. There was so many excuses. 2016 came, his nephew, a retired commander, visited my parents and told my father that he wants to add a second floor so he and his wife could live there also. My father didn't agree and he called his older sister if they want that to happen. They just said that they don't want to get involved. His nephew showed him that he already had the title of the house. Don't know how he did that, maybe he used his political background. I'm not sure. My father was furious. He called me and told me what happened. That time I already bought a small patch of land for them when they want to retire, but I'm still saving enough money to build a house suitable for their needs. There were court battles that I will not include, but in the end his nephew won. but there was an agreement that he has to pay my father $7,400. He mailed us the contract that we should vacate the house after 6 months. And there was a specific item that our lawyer pointed out: we should repaint the house, no specific color. B. Leave the house in original state. Guess what? We hired a construction team to demolish the bedroom, the bathroom, removed the ceiling, kitchen sink L, tiled floor, also the septic tank, leaving it in original state. We spent about $2,800 including the labor. The cherry on top, we painted the house with black inside and red outside with violet dots. It was a huge eyesore. I was bombarded with lots of calls and messages from my aunts and cousin, which I didn't reply. We went no contact after that. My parents now live in a beautiful farmhouse tending their small garden. They enjoy morning walks by the lake, just living a stress-free environment. They are planning to adopt a puppy next month. Edit. Maybe you're wondering, $5,000 is a small amount for money. I didn't include that the title was pawned to someone, not a family member. Edit 2. We got our money back because we have receipts proving we paid the remaining balance. Edit 3. I think this is late, but I think I had made errors in computing our currency into dollar. The judge ruled that besides the remaining balance that we had paid, we should also get paid with the renovation expense. The next one is titled, "Want me to move something without tying it down first? You sure? Okay then. Meet Bob. Bob is someone I know. Bob is a great guy. He has worked hard to support his family his whole life. I admire Bob because he can fix a lot of things on his cars, house, etc. He is almost entirely self-taught and has a lot of common sense despite not being book smart. Which is why I was astounded that he had me do this. Bob can also be stubborn as all hell, and gets to be a really dick when he is stubborn. Bob's wife found a beautiful roll-top desk at a yard sale. She had wanted one for years. Bob asked me to drive to the yard sale with my pickup. Sure thing, Bob. I don't mind helping you out a bit. Bob's wife was excited. Her eyes were gleaming. It was huge, heavy as hell, somewhere around 250 pounds, and old. It was also a very nice desk. So Bob and I and the seller get it manhandled into my pickup bed. I grab straps and Bob snaps at me. We don't have time for that. Let's get it back to the house. I know damn well it isn't going to hold still, and I tell him so. Yes, it will. It is a big, heavy desk. Drive really slowly with your hazards on. Now me, who actually paid attention to physics in high school, and you dear readers, know where this is going. I protested. Let's lay it down or strap it. Bob overruled me. Bob's wife said something. No, he didn't want the desk marred up by straps. I said something again. Bob got upset and yelled. Duck the straps, let's go. Just drive like I said. I said duck it. I did exactly what he said, despite it being my truck. After all, Bob had done a lot free work on my pickup for me. I was doing him a favor, so whatever. Let him be stubborn. We left the yard sale at 10 miles per hour, with a dozen or so people staring after us, slack-jawed. Bob and his wife were in their Corvette behind me. So I was doing exactly what he said, driving really slow with my hazard lights blinking. We make it the few blocks to the main drag that will take us most of the way to Bob's house. I get in the turn lane to wait. The desk starts to shift. The turn lane turns green, and I edge out at about 5 to 7 miles per hour. The top-heavy desk tilted, started to shift, then the wheels on one side came up. Nothing you do at that point is going to work to stop it from tilting. Physics wins again. Bob's wife's new desk died a horrible death in the middle of Powers Boulevard in Colorado Springs one warm spring day in 1993. I could hear her wailing through the open window. Rest in peace, desk. Sorry, Bob's wife. I wanted you to have that thing, you were so happy. Edit, for those asking, the whole thing was anticlimactic to be honest. We gathered the desk up and Bob attempted to repair it. It was broken into a lot of pieces though. My understanding is it worked for a bit, but when they moved out of state they threw it out rather than try and move it. The next one is titled, "Want me to clean a bin of balls?" How about you do it instead? About 15 years ago, I worked at a green hardware store in the Midwest US that helps you save big money. I had just graduated college and was going to be leaving in a few weeks to start my new job as a teacher. My manager and I got along really well, but he didn't like that I was leaving soon. We had this huge bin of inflated balls that were obviously dirty. Nobody wanted to clean them and it was going to take a long time. Note, when working in a school you need to take a training on cleaning up blood-borne pathogens. In many schools, the teacher cleans it up. The blood-borne pathogen training at this place of work said that you contact your manager to clean it up. I start to take out the 30+ balls to clean them and the bin, when I see an old bloody band-aid. I go to my manager and say that I can't clean the balls because of the bloody band-aid and how I'm supposed to report it to my manager to have them clean it up. He tells me to get gloves and clean it up, as he knows that I had the pathogen training for being a teacher. Cue malicious compliance. With a big smile on my face, I told him I didn't want to go against company policy, so I can't clean it up. I also said that I don't know which balls came in contact with the band-aid, so I won't be able to clean them up either. He was upset knowing there was nothing he could do but clean the whole thing up. He got the last laugh a few days later, but that's another story. He was a great manager and a great guy. The next one is titled, Doug the Statistician. This goes back more than 10 years ago. I got a part-time job working for the county. This was in an urban area in California. My job was to call every non-profit and church organization to ask about their after-school programs for youth. It was dull, but I got paid and the work wasn't hard. I used public transportation and my bike to get to work and often arrived late. Sometimes I arrive early. One day, the project director called a staff meeting. He introduced Doug, that statistician in the project, and told us that Doug had compiled a spreadsheet of our hours. I braced myself for a bumpy ride. But then things took a weird turn. The project leader announced that we had not logged enough hours. If he did not use all the money allotted to this project, his budget would be cut next year. I nearly fell out of my chair. Every week after that, inflated my hours on my timesheet. As the weeks went on, I got bolder and submitted timesheets saying I worked 9.5 and 11-hour days, actually working no more than 5. Those days required overtime pay at time and a half. No matter what I submitted, I never got pushback. It was a great summer. In my off hours I practiced pottery and got moderately good on the wheel. At the end of the project, I learned that the entire study was to produce results that would support a predetermined outcome. We were supplying data to support a use of funds, not investigating a problem to determine a solution. I learned that county government can be a refuge for the incompetent. Later in life I learned that private corporations can also be a refuge for incompetence, but my experience working a county job made a big impression on me. The next one is titled, You Calculate My Work Time Based on Phone Login? Fine, I'll come to work, technically not late. It was my first IT job. I was responding to level 1 technical issues over the phone. We had this in browser panel for logging in and out of the queue. When you were ready to take calls you clicked a button for start. When you were going for a break, 5 minutes every hour plus 15 minutes lunch, you hit pause. Same goes for stop, leaving work. On a typical day I would get to work on time, turn the computer on, log into VoIP system and after, let's say, 2 minutes of all of that, start taking calls. My supervisor didn't like it. He said that I am supposed to start answering the phone at 8 o'clock sharp, and that my work time starts only after I log in, not when I come to work. A little back and forth and I decided, fine. Told him I would log in precisely at 8 o'clock. Here's a thing about that web panel, you can manipulate it using not only with your mouse, but also using a JavaScript code that selects a HTML element and clicks it. So over that day I made such a script. I would leave my laptop on for the night and activate the script. Browser window remained open. The next day, I wasn't there at 8 o'clock. But I was logged in. My program detected the 8 o'clock mark and clicked me into the queue. Of course if I didn't answer the phone I would get in trouble, so at 8 hours 0 minutes and 1 second it clicked again on pause button. I calmly went into the room, made myself a cup of coffee, had a little chat with coworkers and logged back in at 8:15. It took 4 working days for my supervisor to notice this, and that's only because someone mentioned it to him. We had a very short conversation. He said that I can come to work at 8 o'clock and start whenever I'm ready, but I cannot tell my coworkers about this trick. I told them I didn't care about this job at that point. By the time I left, at least 4 people were using my script. I'm pretty sure he would fire me if he could, but didn't really have any legal reason. I left the company after the first contract 3 months, since I figured I'm better than this. Like I said, it was my first real IT job and I've gotten some more serious offers since then. I didn't do all of this to be able to come work late. I was trying to point out how ridiculous that login system was. The last one is titled, "If you don't like it, you can leave." I know this isn't an epic professional malicious compliance story, but it was fun and rewarding when it happened. When I was in school, about 14 years old, we got a new arts teacher. Our previous one was amazing. She used to be a famous painter in our state that wanted to teach in her free time and paint just for pleasure. She taught us the basic techniques while encouraging us to create and experiment. She also implemented an arts fair in our school, kind of like a science fair. We had one big theme and each grade had a sub-theme that would fit. The students used to split in groups and come up with an idea that would use some of the material in our curriculum, but we still had a lot of freedom to create. We would have to clear it with her and she helped us with ideas, materials, and guidance. The fair had been going for years and it was one that parents actually liked to attend, going back to it even after their kids already left the school. It's important to note that the school was really not a big one. My grade was the last one that was taught there and we only had 20 to 30 students per grade, so we had all classes together and we all knew each other well. Awesome teacher's health wasn't that good anymore and she retired. Comes new teacher that from the get-go seemed to be intimidated and full of hatred for our previous teacher. She would talk badly about our previous teacher's work, say that what we learned was useless, that everything we were doing was bad and wrong since we never were taught any better, etc. etc. We already didn't like her, but it was our last year there and we weren't confrontational. Then, time for arts fair comes up. We are excited. Our whole theme is art from our country and each grade got specific states. The one my grade got has a really rich culture, with characteristic clothes, dances, etc. We were excited and started organizing ourselves. Then, new teacher tells us that none of that is going to be presented. She wants us to split in groups of 2s and make sort of a painting, using paper maché and trapping objects of that state in it. We were like, but we want to present the dance. We already talked with someone who has the clothes for us to borrow to present in a living statue. We want to do more, and she went on this rant about how our old teacher used to let us do anything, but we were not following the curriculum and it was ridiculous, that she knew what was best for us and we were all brats, that the old teacher made the art fair become a laughing matter and she would not have it. We tried presenting our reasons. We said that having over 10 of the exact same thing was not going to represent the culture of the state, it would be boring to look at, and that we didn't mind doing it if we could also do more. She got angrier and angrier with us trying to talk to her, so she said, "This is my class and if you don't like it, you can leave." So, of course, we left. All of us just got up and left. We went straight to our principal's office that was tiny. She agreed to see us and it was a mess, all of us teenagers feeling that we were not being treated fairly, complaining about our teacher all at once. Our teacher finally showed up, crying. Our principal asked us to wait outside of her office. Finally, 3 of us were invited back inside, where our version was asked. The teacher was still there and we explained what happened and what we wanted, with her crying in the corner and sobbing all the time. I am glad to say that none of us let that make us back away, and the principal didn't allow it either. We reached a compromise. We would make sure to have at least 5 of those hideous paintings she wanted, and we would still be allowed to do everything else we wanted. The fair itself was horrible. Our class was the only one allowed to do anything different, so every room just had things hanging in the wall, all looking similar to each other. Ours had typical food from that state for people to snack on, dance presentation every 30 minutes, people doing living statues with the full clothing we got from a cultural center, a TV showing short movies from artists of that state, and a bunch of students wearing some sort of attire from there with a ton of information about the state to tell visitors. Plus, 5 of those paintings in a corner that no one paid attention to. It didn't take 2 more years for the art fair to stop happening since it didn't get attendance from the public anymore and the parents complained about the waste of time, plus the waste of money the school had hosting it. Thanks for listening.